What's up, everyone? Normal Christians Podcast. My name is Bo. As always, I reserve the right to get smarter. And on this episode, I'm doing something a little different. This is a travel dedicated episode. And if you know anything about me, you know I love to travel. As a matter of fact, when you hear this episode, I will be traveling. I will be on the road. My travel plans include me doing some international travel, which is something I absolutely love to do. And this trip, I am going to knock out my sixth continent. That just leaves me Antarctica after this, which, have to be honest, not particularly excited or in a rush to get to Antarctica. But I am excited to go to this continent, which is South America. I have not been to South America yet. As a matter of fact, I have specifically kind of saved South America because it's a little easier to get to than some of the other continents, like Australia, for instance. But this trip, a little different with COVID. It's actually made it a lot different and a lot harder. I was supposed to go to Europe originally around this time, but then I changed plans because of COVID and not sure that Europe was going to open up. And the ironic part is that Europe has actually opened up more than South America has. If you are vaccinated, you can actually go through most of the European Union without any issue or testing at all. Instead, South America, there's still pretty much a lot of testing going on that you have to do if you're going to go to any of these countries. Only one country I'm going to, you're allowed to just kind of get in and out with no issue. So anyway, my travel plans involve me taking off and going to Boston first, which I'm excited about because I've been to Boston, but I haven't spent a lot of time in the actual historical, more downtown area. And so I'm going to be there for probably a day and a half, and I'm going to do the Freedom Tour, I believe it's called, where you walk around Boston, you follow this path, and you see all these historical sites. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I'm going to go to New York, where I've been to New York plenty of times, but I've never been when the 9/11 Memorial and Museum have been open. I've been there when the Twin Towers were there, but ever since 9/11 happened, I haven't gone during a time whenever I've been able to see that, so I'm super excited to see those things. And then I take off from New York, and I go to Bogota, Colombia, only there for a day, but Colombia, I was supposed to actually go in that Europe trip I talked about. I was actually supposed to go from Europe to Colombia to hit Cartagena, which is a beach resort sort of town in North Colombia. But I'm going to Bogota, the capital. Again, only a day. And Colombia is the one country where, as of now, you really don't need anything to get in. Everyone's fully welcome, at least United States, that is. And so I'll be there. I'll go to the historic part. I'm excited to see some of that stuff, which, again, Colombia maybe not high on my travel list, but it's a kind of a long story how I ended up on this specific flight. But, you know, your boy's got a first class Delta 1 flight from JFK to Bogota. That's one thing you'll hear a lot with my travels. I love traveling and experiencing new things, and part of that is the flights, actually. And I do a lot with credit card points and rewards to help pay for that because I'm way too poor to pay for those kind of flights myself. But I'll get into that in another episode. All that to say, I've got a nice first-class flight from New York to Bogota with a lay flat, getting the whole Delta 1 experience. A little older plane, but that's okay. Beggars can't be choosers. I'll be there for about a day, and then I'll actually jump over to Peru, where I'll get in late to Peru, sleep, and then I'll go to Cusco, which is kind of the launching point off for most people to Machu Picchu. And what I'll do is I'll take a train later that day, go to some city nearby Machu Picchu. Couldn't even tell you the name of the city, but I'll sleep there, do Machu Picchu in the morning, take the train back to Cusco, spend some time there for a bit, head back to Lima for a very, very short time. Wish I had more time in Lima, but because of COVID, a bunch of things changed and some flights changed, which I was bummed about. But what are you going to do? I'll take off from Lima, and then I'll eventually end up in Brazil, which is where I'll spend the bulk of my time. And shout out to Brazil. For some reason, I don't know how this happened, but I have a few Brazilian listeners. So if you happen to be listening to this one, shout out to you guys in Brazil. I don't know how you guys found this, but hey, appreciate that. But I am excited for Brazil. Brazil is certainly a place that I have always wanted to go. So I'll eventually land in Rio, spend some time there. Nice little resort in Copacabana, or Copacabana, however you say it. And what is it? It's the JW Marriott. Anyway, I'm nice. It's nice. I'm excited about it. I'll get to see Christ the Redeemer and some other things that I've really wanted to see, and just hang out on the beach, because pretty much every trip I do internationally, I always try to end up at a beach, usually at the end, but at least at some point. So I'll spend most of my time there, head over to Sao Paulo, just for a short amount of time, and then I've got my flights back to the U.S., where your boy's got another first-class flight back to JFK, and then eventually to Denver Airport, which is my home airport. But really excited for that. That's an American, their flagship first product. And as I say this, I realize most of you guys probably don't care at all about the flight portion, but I'm excited to try new things. And so I'll be back for a few days. I'll be back in the weekend, do church. And then I actually take off for a few days and go to Alaska, where my goal is to see the Northern Lights. In my actual bucket list of travel things, the Northern Lights is one of the few things that I really have left. And so I'm super excited. I'm going right at a new moon. I'm going to drive up to the Arctic Circle and car camp that night and really hopefully get some good weather, good clear night to see the Northern Lights, then come back. And that's kind of my fall travel. Unfortunately, with COVID, I got to do a lot of testing in these other countries and even testing to get back into the United States. And the sad thing is, if I pop any one of those tests, if I get any positive, I'm in trouble. It's a whole different ball game at that point. So I've been joking around with people and kind of saying, I wonder which country I'm going to get stuck in. I wonder which country I'm going to have an elongated vacation in while I deal with COVID. Hopefully none of them. And you can say a prayer for me as you listen to this, because, well, as a matter of fact, when you hear this, this should be the day when I'm actually heading to Brazil. So if I've made it to this point, things are pretty good. I'm in pretty good shape. If I could get to Brazil, I'll just have to make it a couple more days and then retest. I believe it's that Friday, or when you hear this, that Friday, Saturday, whenever it is. But if I can make it to Brazil, if I can do that, man, I am in good shape. It will just go very, very, very poorly if I get a positive on any of these other days, anything like that. So you can say a prayer. Hopefully it's all good. But anyway, that's my travel plans. This is the travel episode, giving you a little bit of the itinerary of what I've got going on, paid mostly by points and rewards because, again, way too poor to do these kinds of trips. But this has been years now. I've been all about experiences. I've been all about making memories. And I actually did an episode on this that you could find where I talk about the importance of these experiences and making memories. And traveling is a huge part of that. Again, assuming everything goes well, this will be my 6th continent. Been to a lot of countries, seen a lot of great places and things, and I'm excited to check some boxes with this one. But I know not everybody has the travel bug, the nomadic sort of spirit that I have. And for whatever reason, it's expensive, certainly. Depending on your stage of life, it's maybe even impossible with kids or work responsibilities. That's another great thing about my job I have right now. It provides me a ton of flexibility. But I still think that we should travel. This is a travel episode, again. Gave you my itinerary, but I also want to talk about travel a bit. And there's an article that talked about from NBC News. It said 5 scientifically proven health benefits of traveling abroad. There you go. It says scientifically proven, and we all trust that nowadays, right? Little joke on our whole COVID situation going on. But this article was written a few years ago, so maybe we could have some more trust in that. And the subtitle is, mentally, physically, and emotionally, you can gain a lot from packing your bags and visiting places you've never been. Completely agree with that. And so some things from the article. Traveling the world isn't just fun and exciting. There's ample research to suggest it's highly beneficial for your physical, mental, and emotional health as well. Americans may say they like to travel, but most don't venture abroad very often. According to a study published in the Hostel World Global Travel Report, and a hostel not being hostile as in a fight or that temperament, hostel being a place that you would stay, very cheap place. Americans are half as likely as Europeans to go abroad and visit more than one country. The average resident of the UK has visited 10 countries, Germans have seen 8, and the French traveled to 5 nations on average. But Americans, they tend to visit just 3. In fact, 29% of American adults have never been abroad. And that's not surprising. I've talked to a lot of people who have never been abroad, and I get that. Multiple reasons for it. And it also makes sense why Europeans travel more. Their countries are certainly closer and more abundant than we have here in the States. And being in the European Union, obviously the UK is not in at least some part. But at least with the European Union, it's very easy to get across. You could take a train to a different country in no time. So there are some different things, but I have known plenty of Americans who are just content to not travel or to travel within the United States, and that does make sense. When I was in Italy, actually in Venice on a gondola, I was talking to a couple, I believe they were actually from the UK, and I was talking about how cool it was that in Europe they're so close, there's access to so many other countries, this and that, and they made a good point. They said, sure, but when you think about America, you guys pretty much have everything that you need already within the country. You have your big cities, you have your small rural areas, you've got all kinds of different climates, you have beaches, you have deserts, you have mountains, you have snow, you have pretty much everything, different cultures from all over the world, all there. So, and their point was valid, you could pretty much experience a lot without going out the country, and I definitely agree with that. I've been to, I believe, 38 or 39 states also, so this country's awesome, and we definitely take it for granted in some sense. But I do think, as this article's trying to get at, traveling and traveling abroad is an important thing. And here's the 5 reasons they say, ultimately, are the 5 scientifically proven health benefits for traveling abroad. The first one is travel makes you healthier. According to a joint study from the Global Commission of Aging and Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, in partnership with the Travel Association, that's a very long introduction to the actual stats, traveling actually keeps you healthier. The study found that women who vacation at least twice a year show a significantly lower risk of suffering a heart attack than those who only travel every 6 years or so. The same is true for men. Men who did not take an annual vacation show a 20% higher risk of death and 30% greater risk of heart disease. It's some pretty staggering statistics. And, travel in and of itself isn't the thing, but what comes with travel? It can actually make you healthier. The second thing was travel relieves stress. Although missing a connecting flight or losing baggage in a foreign airport is sure to boost your anxiety, amen to that, traveling has been scientifically proven to lower stress levels, and rather dramatically. According to one study, 3 days after taking a vacation, travelers report feeling less anxiety, more rested, and in a better mood. Interestingly, these benefits tend to linger for weeks after the trip has ended. Now, as they said, travel can be stressful. I'll just give you a hint. This trip that I'm planning to South America has been some of the most stressful planning that I've done, and I've traveled around the world. COVID has made it difficult. All the extra nonsense that I've had to figure out, like where am I going to test here? Where am I going to get a PCR test at Cusco? Or how I'm going to pay for this and that? All nonsense in my opinion. I hate it. So it's added a lot of stress. But this is also true. There's something about seeing, experiencing things, relaxing on a beach, whatever that is, that just lets the stress melt away, and you just come back, in some senses, refreshed. Third, travel enhances your creativity. Foreign experiences increase both cognitive flexibility and depth and integrativeness of thought. The ability to make deep connections between disparate forms, explains Adam Someone, who's a professor at Columbia Business School, who has authored a number of studies that investigate the concrete links between creativity and international travel. So it boosts cognitive flexibility and depth and integrativeness of thought, and the ability to make deep connections between different forms. Travel alone isn't enough, however. The researcher has found that international travelers have to be purposeful and engaging. The key, critical process in multicultural engagement, immersion, and adaptation, he continues. Someone who lives abroad and doesn't engage with local culture will likely get less of a creative boost than someone who takes travel abroad and really engages in the local environment. And this is something that most people hate about my travel. I'm not as interested all the time in jumping into the local culture and the local cuisine, even though I do to some extent as much as I can. I'm okay going somewhere and not eating the local cuisine or seeing the back road places, and I know that drives people crazy. I'm more of a travel assassin, I like to call it. I like to get in, get out, and see as much as I can, check those big boxes, stuff like that. So this may not apply to me, but there's creativity that comes from traveling. The fourth, travel boosts happiness and satisfaction. Most people tend to be happier when they're traveling and don't have to worry about work, of course. However, one of the more interesting takeaways from a Cornell university study, is that people also experience a direct increase in happiness from just planning a trip. The study found that anticipation of taking a vacation is far greater than the anticipation of acquiring a physical possession. Thus, the benefits of traveling abroad begin well before the trip does. And that's certainly true in a lot of senses. Just the planning, the thinking it through, the anticipation gives you a certain level of happiness and satisfaction. That's been certainly nerfed, and it's declining in a sense with this trip for me because of the other nonsense. But this is certainly true. Not only on the trip are you getting happiness and satisfaction, but even before you get it. And then the fifth, travel lowers the risk of depression. While people tend to avoid the subject in our society, depression is unfortunately a major problem. Millions of Americans struggle with depression on a regular basis, and it's not uncommon for doctors to overprescribe medication for depression. Luckily, healthier alternatives are available for escaping the hopelessness of a depressed state. According to research, travel may be one of them. A study from the Marshall Clinic in Wisconsin found that women who vacation at least twice a year are less likely to suffer from depression and chronic stress than women who vacation less than once every 2 years. So another big thing is the risk of depression goes down. Those experiences, those memories, the things that you get to do help lower depression. So I just kind of want to run through these things because when I talk about my travels, it sounds a little braggadocious. Sounds like I'm bragging, and in one sense I am. I'm super excited for this travel. I do the kind of credit card points reward game as a hobby in a lot of senses, while other people are probably doing more productive things. I'm earning points and rewards that I am ready to turn into travel, to stay at some incredible places. A trip I have coming up in the spring, Lord willing, I'm staying at a hotel that last I checked was over $1,000 a night. And so, and I'm paying nothing for that hotel. And so there's this sense that, of course, I'm bragging in one way because I'm super excited. I've worked hard to get the points to be able to get the experiences and stay the places and do those sort of things. But as I talked about in the memories and the experiences episode, that's the stuff that's going to last. That's the stuff that we remember. That's the stuff that we'll tell our kids and grandkids about. That's what's important in a lot of ways. And you actually see there's real physical benefits to traveling, and specifically getting out of our comfort zone, traveling abroad, experiencing new things. So, again, you can say a little prayer for me. When you're hearing this, I am on the road, I'm traveling, and Lord willing, I'm having a great time. And experiencing that stuff, checking off some boxes, and just enjoying, at this point, a plane ride. So probably not enjoying it. It's a long plane ride too. But heading to Brazil to enjoy some sun, some beach, and some nice sights. So I encourage you, man, step out your comfort zone if you've never traveled internationally and travel. I didn't read it, but it talked about how most international travel Americans do is to Canada and Mexico. Nothing wrong with that. Been to Mexico before. Some nice beaches and places there. But just get out your comfort zone. Maybe take that big trip that you've been planning. Maybe start setting aside some money to check off that box on that dream location, to hit that bucket list item. Machu Picchu was a big item for me that I'm excited to go see and experience, and hopefully at this point have experienced as you hear this. So go do it, man. Make it a point. Make it a priority, because you won't regret it. Not only will you have those memories, but as you just heard, there's some benefits, physical benefits, and just other proven health benefits that come with travel. So that's all I've got. A little bragging, a little talk about travel. Oof, and I love it. Had to get an episode dedicated to travel while I'm on vacation right now. So anyway, thanks for taking the time and joining me and listening wherever you're at and however you're listening. But before I go, 3515, and I'll see you again next time.